Welcome to Part 2 of Historical Scholia's documentary on the social and economic history of Britain. In this segment, we're diving into some of the most pivotal moments that shaped medieval Britain. We'll start by exploring the changes in agriculture, trade, and currency that transformed both the countryside and the economy. We'll also take a closer look at the roles of the aristocracy and the monarchy, and how their power struggles shaped the course of history. From there, we'll journey into life in the towns and villages, where daily life was evolving with new opportunities and new challenges. So sit back, relax, and join us as we uncover the events that laid the groundwork for the Britain we know today. In the heart of medieval England, the land is both the foundation and the lifeblood of society. Here, in the fields stretching across the countryside, the agricultural revolution is quietly unfolding. While the castles and towns grow, the majority of people remain tied to the soil, where new methods and tools will shape their lives and the future of the economy. For centuries, England's farmers have relied on rudimentary tools and ancient techniques to cultivate the land. But as the 12th and 13th centuries progress, new innovations begin to take root. The heavy plow, an iron-tipped marvel, emerges as one of the most significant advancements in medieval agriculture. Unlike its wooden predecessors, the iron plow can break through the tough, clay-heavy soils of the northern and Midlands regions, making farming more efficient and productive. With the arrival of these new tools, agriculture becomes more than just a means of survival. It becomes an engine of growth. The ability to cultivate more land, to dig deeper, and to bring in higher yields means that villages and towns can flourish. The very landscape of England is transformed, as fields once untended now sprout with crops. And as the productivity of the land increases, so too does the stability of the population. Yet, even as new tools revolutionize farming, it's the practice of crop rotation that brings the greatest change to England's rural life. The three-field system, now widely adopted, allows farmers to rotate their crops each year, planting one field with grain, another with legumes, and leaving a third fallow. This method not only replenishes the soil, but increases crop yields, reducing famine and bolstering the food supply. Where once a single bad harvest could spell disaster, the new rotation system spreads the risk, ensuring greater security for families across the land. As the fields grow more bountiful, so does England's role in the European economy. The wool trade emerges as a central pillar of wealth, with England's fertile pastures producing some of the finest wool in all of Europe. Sheep, once a modest part of the agricultural landscape, are now raised in great numbers to meet the rising demand for wool. Towns like Winchester and Norwich become vital hubs of the wool industry, where merchants and traders gather to buy and sell this prized commodity. Wool becomes England's most important export, and the trade spreads across the continent, enriching both the landowners and the merchants who handle the goods. Wool is woven into fine cloth in cities like Ghent, Florence, and Bruges, creating an economic bond that ties England to the broader world. It's not just the farmers of England who benefit, but a whole network of workers, dyers, spinners, and weavers, who thrive in the growing textile industry. The success of the wool trade signals a shift in medieval England. No longer are the people's fates solely determined by the whims of local lords or the unpredictable weather. Through innovation, both in the fields and in the workshops, England steps onto the stage as a vital player in the European economy. Agriculture, with all its tools and techniques, becomes the foundation upon which a new era of prosperity is built. As the demand for wool grew in the late medieval period, particularly during the 14th and 15th centuries, the woolen industry became one of England's most profitable enterprises. This economic boom, however, had significant social consequences, particularly for the peasants who depended on common land for farming. The rise of the wool trade led to the enclosure system, where landowners began to fence off large areas of common pasture and arable land for sheep grazing. This was a lucrative move for landowners, as wool was in high demand across Europe, particularly in Flanders. Sheep farming required far less labor than the mixed farming that had previously supported peasant families, and landowners sought to maximize profits by converting vast tracts of land into sheep pastures. For the peasants, the enclosure system meant the loss of vital resources. Much of the land they had once farmed or grazed their animals on was now closed off, leaving them with no means to support their families. Many peasants were displaced, forced to leave the countryside in search of work in towns or cities, often with little success. This shift in land use contributed to the growing urbanization of England, as many rural workers sought opportunities in the burgeoning towns. But it also intensified social tensions, with increasing numbers of disenfranchised people. For landowners, the financial benefits of enclosure were clear, but the social consequences were complex. While they saw increased wealth from the wool trade, they also faced the challenge of managing a workforce that was increasingly restless and displaced. The enclosure system, while economically beneficial for some, deepened the divide between the landed elite and the common people, laying the groundwork for tensions that would persist well into the early modern period. As the medieval world continues to grow and evolve, the bustling markets and expanding cities of England are transformed by the rise of international trade. This new era of commerce is built on a simple yet powerful exchange: goods for gold, wool for wine, cloth for spices. The once isolated island kingdom is now deeply interconnected with the broader European and Mediterranean economies, trading not just commodities, but ideas, cultures, and innovations. At the heart of this trade is England's wool, its finest export. Demand for English wool grows across Europe, from the textile mills of Flanders to the cloth manufacturers of Italy. But England's trade is not limited to wool alone. Wine flows from France, spices from the East, and silks from the Mediterranean make their way to England's ports. The marketplace becomes a crossroads of the world, and goods from every corner of Europe and beyond are exchanged in the thriving cities of London, York, and Bristol. As trade flourishes, so too does the need for new systems to handle the complexities of international commerce. The answer is found in the growing influence of banking and credit. In London, a city that stands as England's economic hub, financial institutions begin to take shape. Merchants and traders are no longer limited to the physical exchange of coins. Instead, they rely on more sophisticated methods of conducting business. One such method is the bill of exchange, a financial tool that allows merchants to transfer money across long distances without the need to carry large sums of coin. This innovation makes trade easier and safer, and it sets the foundation for the banking systems that will come to dominate medieval Europe. By using letters of credit, merchants can now conduct business with far-off partners, secure in the knowledge that the agreed-upon funds will be available for exchange when they arrive at their destination. And it is not only merchants who benefit from these financial innovations. Bankers, who have long been a part of the economic landscape, now find themselves playing a pivotal role in England's growing economy. They lend money to traders, provide loans for landowners, and help facilitate the expansion of both local and international trade. In doing so, they help create a web of economic activity that stretches from the streets of London to the farthest reaches of Europe. The monarchy, too, plays a crucial role in fostering this new economic world. By regulating the coinage system, kings like Henry II and Richard the Lionheart provide the stability necessary for trade to thrive. The Royal Mint, established in London, begins to produce a consistent currency that merchants can rely on. Gold and silver coins bearing the king's seal, trusted and accepted across the land. This standardization of coinage ensures that trade remains predictable and safe, allowing merchants to conduct business with confidence. The coinage system is not merely a tool of trade, however. It is also a symbol of the monarchy's growing power and influence. As kings issue new coins and enforce a unified currency system, they lay the groundwork for an economic system that will sustain England for generations to come. The strength of the coin, tied to the strength of the crown, ensures that England's place in the global market is solidified. The rise of banking, credit, and a stable coinage system together create a more connected, more dynamic economic landscape, one in which London and other cities become crucial centers of commerce. England, once a land of villages and farms, is now firmly entrenched in the trade networks that link Europe and the Mediterranean. And as the flow of goods and money grows, so too does England's prosperity, laying the foundation for the future of its people. At the heart of medieval England lies a complex web of power, woven between the crown, the aristocracy, and the church. As England's economy grows and shifts, so too does the influence of its rulers. The nobility, with their vast estates, control much of the land and wealth. Their rise in wealth and power is rooted in the land they hold, where peasants work the fields and provide the economic foundation for both the nobles and the crown. The wealth of the nobility is tangible. Gold, silver, and grain flow from their estates, giving them the power to influence not just local affairs, but the broader political landscape. They are the lords of the land, with their castles dotting the countryside, watching over villages and towns where peasants labor in exchange for protection and the right to work the land. The more land they own, the more they control the kingdom's resources, and with that control comes power, not just over their estates, but over the kingdom itself. But the nobility's wealth is not limitless. The crown, the very symbol of royal authority, is the key to the kingdom's political and economic stability. Kings like Henry II, Richard the Lionheart, and later King John rely on the nobility to fund their ambitions, particularly in times of war. The relationship between king and noble is one of necessity. The king needs the support of his lords, who provide soldiers and resources to wage wars, while the nobles need the king's protection and royal legitimacy to safeguard their estates. The economic structure of this relationship is built on taxation and land ownership. The king's primary source of income comes from taxing the nobility, who, in turn, collect taxes from their peasants. This system of feudal obligation ensures that the crown has the financial means to sustain itself, while the nobility maintains its power through wealth and land. However, as the monarchy grows more centralized, the demands for taxation increase, often leading to tensions between the crown and the aristocracy. The nobility's wealth and influence are not the only forces shaping England's economy. The emerging merchant class, rising with the growth of towns and trade, begins to alter the balance of power. Merchants, once on the fringes of society, now play a critical role in England's economic life. They facilitate trade, finance wars, and increasingly look to the crown for patronage. This growing wealth from commerce makes the merchant class a formidable player in the kingdom's politics. The king, for his part, recognizes the value of this new class. While the church and the nobility have long been his primary supporters, the burgeoning merchant class offers him a new means of consolidating power through trade, loans, and the wealth generated by cities like London. In return for their support, the king grants merchants privileges, including protection for their goods and the promise of safe trade routes. The relationship between the crown and merchants becomes symbiotic, each benefiting from the other's growing power. Meanwhile, the church, an institution both spiritual and political, remains a powerful force within the kingdom. Its vast landholdings and ability to influence the hearts and minds of the people make it an essential partner to the crown. The monarchy's relationship with the church is one of mutual dependency. The king needs the church's blessing to legitimize his rule, while the church depends on the king's protection to maintain its wealth and authority. The clergy, often drawn from noble families, are both spiritual leaders and significant landowners, and their support can tip the balance of power in any political struggle. In this intricate web of relationships, the king must navigate a delicate balance, aligning himself with the nobility, the church, and the merchants, all while asserting his authority over a vast and often fractious realm. His power is not just in his landholdings, but in his ability to manage these competing forces, keeping the peace while ensuring that his kingdom thrives. As England's economy grows more complex, the role of the aristocracy and the monarchy becomes even more intertwined. Together, they shape the future of the kingdom, and the power they wield will resonate through the centuries. The fate of the realm rests not just in the hands of the king, but in the delicate alliances and tensions between these powerful forces. Chapter 4: Social Structures and Daily Life. The medieval nobility holds the keys to both the land and the power that sustains England's society. From the towering castles that guard the realm to the sprawling manor houses nestled in the countryside, the noble estate is the epicenter of the feudal system. Castles are not just fortresses, they are symbols of the authority and wealth that flow from the land they control. Surrounding these castles are estates, villages, and farms, all part of a complex system that sustains the economy, and the nobility's role in that system is crucial. The noble estate is more than a residence. It is a microcosm of medieval society, structured to support the economy, defend the land, and maintain order. Within the castle walls, the lord of the estate oversees everything, from land management to military service. He is the guardian of the realm and the ruler of the lands that surround his castle, where peasants work the soil and provide the goods that fuel the economy. The manor house, where the lord and his family reside, is the heart of this vast network, and the lord is both ruler and protector. In these estates, the lord's responsibilities are manifold. Not only must he manage the land, ensuring the fields are worked and the harvests are gathered, but he is also charged with the protection of his people. When called upon by the king, the lord must raise a military force, drawing knights from his vassals, who are bound by feudal duty to serve in times of war. Military service is a critical aspect of the noble's role, for the safety and security of the realm depend on the lord's ability to defend his estate, and in turn, the kingdom. The life of a noble is, therefore, defined by duty. Beyond war, the lord also holds the power to enforce the law, settling disputes among his tenants and administering justice on his land. This is not just a matter of governance, it is part of the order of society. Peasants and vassals rely on the lord's decisions to maintain their lives and livelihoods, while the king depends on the noble class to uphold peace across the realm. But amidst these heavy responsibilities, the nobility's life is also one of privilege. The culture of the aristocracy is steeped in the ideals of chivalry, an unspoken code of honor and behavior that governs not only their military actions but their social lives as well. Tournaments, such as jousting, are a spectacle that brings the nobility together to celebrate their martial prowess and to demonstrate their strength, courage, and honor. These events offer a break from the heavy demands of land management and warfare, allowing knights and lords to compete for honor and prestige in the eyes of their peers. Education, too, plays a vital role in the life of the nobility. The children of lords are carefully trained in the arts of governance, reading, writing, and, of course, combat. As heirs to the land and its power, noble children learn how to manage estates, make decisions, and lead with authority. They are also taught the values of chivalry, virtue, bravery, courtesy, and a deep sense of duty to both their family and kingdom. Beyond practical matters, the nobility is also educated in literature and the arts, fostering a love for chivalric romances, poetry, and music. These pursuits cultivate the cultural refinement that defines their social status. In the quiet moments of their lives, the noble families indulge in the luxuries of courtly life. They entertain guests at lavish feasts, enjoying fine foods, music, and the company of poets and minstrels. The arts thrive in noble households, libraries filled with illuminated manuscripts, tapestries that tell the stories of knights and kings, and songs that celebrate the glory of chivalric ideals. For the nobility, culture is not just a luxury. It is a means of reinforcing their status and their role in society. Yet, for all the privileges of the noble class, their lives are never free of responsibility. The land they rule, the people they protect, and the military forces they command bind them to a duty that never ceases. In return for their wealth and position, the nobility must maintain their estates, ensure the safety of their people, and serve their king when called upon. The nobility's life is a delicate balance between governance, warfare, culture, and duty. A life defined by the land they control, the legacy they uphold, and the code of chivalry that guides their every action. It is a life of power and prestige, but also of immense responsibility, for the fate of the realm rests in many ways in their hands. In the medieval world, towns and villages were the centers of commerce, innovation, and daily life. While the vast majority of people lived in the countryside, the towns were the beating heart of economic activity, where people came together to work, trade, and connect. For the craftspeople and merchants who lived in these towns, daily life was shaped by their trade. Artisans such as weavers, potters, and blacksmiths worked tirelessly to create the goods that kept the town alive: tools, clothes, food, and luxury items. For many, these trades were passed down through generations, a system of knowledge and skills that kept the town's economy humming. Guilds were central to life in the medieval towns. These powerful associations of artisans and merchants regulated everything from the price of goods to the standards of quality. To become a master of a craft, a young apprentice had to spend years learning under a master craftsman. Once trained, they could become journeymen, traveling to other towns for work before eventually opening their own businesses. Daily life in the medieval town revolved around the marketplace. Here, peasants from nearby villages, merchants, and townfolk would come together to trade. Markets were held regularly, often weekly, while fairs were held at key points in the year. These events allowed traders to exchange goods and brought an influx of culture, ideas, and even politics into the town. At these markets, the social divide was evident. Nobles and townsfolk alike mingled, exchanging goods in an environment that encouraged commerce to thrive. This interaction brought an influx of foreign goods, ideas, and wealth into towns, gradually shaping a new and diverse urban economy. But not all life in medieval society was centered around the towns. Villages played a crucial role in supporting urban life by providing the agricultural goods that fed the population. These rural communities worked in harmony with the towns, with peasants bringing their goods to market to trade for the tools, clothing, and other essentials crafted in the town workshops. Guilds not only ensured the quality of goods, but also protected the interests of their members. Through these organizations, craftsmen and merchants could ensure that standards were maintained and that their trade was protected from unfair competition. Whether a weaver, a baker, or a blacksmith, guilds provided the structure that helped the economy grow and allowed for both social mobility and security. At the heart of it all was the urban economy, a complex web of trade, guilds, and craftsmanship. The growing towns played a pivotal role in shifting the medieval world toward a more connected and vibrant society. Here, the seeds of a new economy, one rooted in commerce and exchange, were sown, setting the stage for the profound transformations that would take place in the centuries to come. The medieval towns and villages were far more than just places to live. They were dynamic hubs of innovation and commerce, each with its own identity and energy. These urban spaces were the foundations of a new world, where the ties of community, trade, and craft would soon give rise to new social orders and economic systems that would shape the future. At the heart of every medieval town was the marketplace, not just a place to buy and sell, but the very lifeblood of the local economy. Here, artisans, farmers, traders, and townsfolk came together to exchange goods, from fresh produce and textiles to tools and pottery. But the significance of these markets extended beyond mere trade. They were vibrant hubs of social interaction, cultural exchange, and even politics. Markets in medieval towns were held regularly, often once or twice a week, becoming key moments for the exchange of both goods and news. Peasants would bring their freshly harvested produce, artisans their handcrafted goods, and merchants would transport exotic items, such as spices, silks, and metals, from far-flung regions. The marketplace was a place where not just commodities, but ideas, stories, and even innovations were exchanged. But the marketplace was not the only venue for trade. Once a year, towns and villages hosted fairs, grand events that drew traders and merchants from all corners of the land, and even from across the seas. These annual fairs were much more than simple markets. They were extravaganzas of commerce, lasting several days, where traders could sell everything from livestock and luxury textiles to fine jewelry and rare spices. These fairs were essential for connecting local economies with global trade networks. Merchants could exchange local goods for foreign treasures, creating links between towns and faraway places. A merchant could purchase rare items from the East, such as spices or silks, and trade them for local products like wool, furs, or grain. At the heart of these fairs and markets were the guilds. These powerful organizations played a vital role in regulating trade. Guilds set standards for the quality of goods sold, ensuring that products were made to a certain level of craftsmanship and were priced fairly. They also acted as protectors of local economies, shielding their members from unfair competition. Without the structure provided by the guilds, the quality and fairness of medieval trade would have been uncertain. Guilds not only regulated the price and quality of goods, but also ensured that the marketplace was orderly. Town officials, often working alongside guild representatives, would monitor the fair for compliance with local trade laws. A merchant who tried to cheat customers, for example, might face a fine or be banned from future fairs. Markets and fairs were also places of information exchange. Town criers or officials would announce news of new trade laws, special market days, or upcoming events, keeping the local community informed. It was also a place where social connections were made. Merchants and nobles mingled, forging relationships that could lead to trade alliances, and townsfolk could engage in discussions about the issues of the day. As the day came to an end, the bustle of the market or fair gradually faded, but its impact would remain. These gatherings played a central role in shaping the economy, culture, and even the social structures of medieval towns. By fostering commerce, encouraging cultural exchange, and promoting fair trade, markets and fairs helped medieval society thrive and laid the groundwork for the economic transformations that would come in the centuries ahead. In medieval society, the roles of women were intricately tied to their social status, yet all women, regardless of class, played crucial roles in shaping the world around them. From the grand halls of the aristocracy to the humble cottages of the peasantry, women's lives were defined by their responsibilities in the household, their influence in the political and religious spheres, and the strength of their familial bonds. For women in the aristocracy, life often revolved around managing estates. While noble husbands were away at war or court, their wives assumed control of their lands, overseeing everything from the harvest to the welfare of their tenants. These women were not only caretakers of wealth, but the keystones of their family's survival. Their decisions could make or break the fortunes of entire regions. In contrast, the life of a peasant woman was one of relentless labor. From dawn to dusk, they worked alongside their husbands in the fields, tending to animals, growing food, and ensuring the survival of their families. Though their work was hard and often underappreciated, their contribution was no less significant. The strength of these women lay in their resilience and their ability to maintain households in the face of adversity. But it was not just in the home that women left their mark. Religious institutions offered some women a different path, one of spiritual and intellectual pursuit. Many entered convents where they found a sense of autonomy and the opportunity to influence their communities through education, charity, and religious leadership. The abbesses and nuns of these institutions often held great power, guiding the faithful and preserving knowledge in an age where literacy was rare. In the realm of politics, a select few women rose to power. Queens and noblewomen wielded influence both behind the scenes and in public affairs. They acted as advisors, regents, and rulers, negotiating treaties, managing estates, and in some rare cases, leading armies into battle. These women were not passive figures, but strategic minds whose decisions impacted the course of nations. Whether they ruled from thrones or worked the land, women in medieval society were the silent architects of its foundation. Through marriage, motherhood, and leadership, they navigated the complex systems of medieval life, shaping not only the future of their families, but of the kingdoms they called home. In the tapestry of medieval history, the threads of women's lives are often hidden, but their impact is undeniable. Their labor, intellect, and resilience sustain their families, their faith, and their societies. Their influence was, and remains, a fundamental part of our shared history. As the medieval world entered the 14th and early 15th centuries, England stood at a crossroads. The feudal order that had defined society for generations was beginning to shift. The devastation of the Black Death, the turbulence of peasant revolts, and the growing power of towns and trade all played a role in reshaping the kingdom's social and economic landscape. Yet, through war, famine, and plague, the people of England endured, adapting, resisting, and forging the foundations of a new era. This concludes part 2 of our journey through Britain's social and economic history. If you've enjoyed the documentary so far, be sure not to miss part 3, where we will explore the transformative period of the 100 Years' War, the rise of a new merchant class, and the cultural and economic shifts that paved the way for the dawn of the Renaissance.